Well, welcome to Good News Hendo. So good to be with all of you. We've taken a little hiatus for a couple of months, but we're excited to be back. I cannot tell you how excited I am to have our guest on this podcast today. Our guest today is, he won't like me saying this, he's a legend in Hendersonville. Everybody knows him. He's been here for so long. I would say name recognition, face recognition. This guy is known across our county as much as anyone for his love, his service, his dedication. He just retired recently, and we have just been longing to get him on this podcast. I am so glad to have my friend Steve Katsadouros on the show with us today. Steve of Hot Dog World. Steve, thank you for being here today. It is a joy to have you as a friend and a joy to have you on this podcast today.
Thank you very much, Preacher Andy. I don't know what to say about follow those introduction. I think you're too kind. But it's been 35 years that my wife and I have been in Hendersonville operating the Hot Dog World. And in the biggest joy of it all, the relationships that we've built over the 35 years.
Oh, and you have. So that I'm trying to do the math in my head. Hot Dog World started what year? Would that be 86?
86, in 1986.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how Hot Dog World started.
Sure. My father-in-law was in Albany, Georgia, operating Jimmy's Hot Dogs in downtown Albany. And he wanted to retire. He grew up in the mountains in the old country, Greece. And he had family in Asheville. So when he decided to retire, they looked at the Tampa area to move south to Florida. But when they came up to Asheville, just fell in love with the mountains, and they came up here. He, my mother-in-law, and their 3 daughters. And after 3 or 4 years of doing nothing, he got bored and decided to open up Hot Dog World. And with the idea of building equity in the business and then selling it. And this was in 1985. He purchased the building, which was an old Sonic that had been closed. And in 1985-86, it was adding the dining room, remodeling it, and getting ready to open. It was the time that I met his youngest daughter, Dora, and she and I were dating, set our wedding, and then thought about, maybe taking over the business. So the initial plan were his.
So your father-in-law actually opened the business in that location there.
It was opened July 15 of 1986. Turned in my notice to my former employer and came aboard September 13 of 1986.
Wow.
And then we got married in November 30 of 1986, and then January 1st of 1997, it became official. We purchased the business from my father-in-law.
In 97?
No, I'm sorry. Did I? 87. I'm
87.
sorry. 87.
So like
yeah.
a year, the next
6
year,
months, yeah.
it became official.
And that was the
Ventures.
plan. That was the plan that we would work
Sure.
together, learn the business, and then we that was the plan.
Have you ever tried to figure out, Steve, how many hot dogs you've made
Sure.
at that counter?
11,584,462, give or take 100,000.
You were ready for that question.
No, I just make
You
up
were-
I'm pretty sure it's about about 11.5 million or something like that. So I usually, give you a specific number and then add or subtract 100,000.
I assume you've been asked that question a couple
Yeah,
times.
people ask me, and you do the math that you sell so many per year,
Okay.
about 330,000 per year. So
And you're there. As you know, I'm a frequent customer. You
Well,
know
thank
that as well as anybody. I see you there. And as you're there, on an average day, how many hot dogs would you put together?
sure, probably about 1,000.
About 1,000.
It starts out, about 800 on Mondays, and it grows about, and then Saturdays, especially when we're open a full day.
Right.
After COVID, we cut back Saturdays to half a day. Saturdays would be strictly hot dogs, and it would be, limited salads, limited other sandwiches. It was just strictly hot dogs. I should say more hot dogs than anything else. And that number tended to be about 1,500 on the Saturdays.
Wow.
So
That's a lot of hot dogs.
Well, on Saturdays we just had people come from up the upstate, and they wanted a hot dog versus our regular customers who want a burger or a salad or something else. So that's why the number went up on Saturdays, because we had so many out-of-towners.
I've said this to people a lot. I can grill a steak at my house better than I can get anywhere. I fancy myself to be a grill master, as many of us do. I don't think I can grill a steak. I don't think I can get a steak somewhere out like I can make it home. I cannot make a hot dog as good as you guys do. I have tried. One day I thought, I'm going to make myself a hot dog, and I'm just going to try my best to make it as good as Hot Dog World. It's never happened. Tell us, Steve. I'm not asking for the company secret, but maybe I am. What's the secret to making an awesome hot dog? Because something about those hot dogs there are just the best I've ever had. What's the secret?
Obviously, you buy a quality Frankfurter. The food service products, for the most part, are going to be better what we have at a grocery store, simply because we're making a living at it.
Right.
So it's going to be a leaner cut of meat. Because we realize we're going to cook volume. So the quality is always better, whether you buy the potatoes or you buy vegetables or you buy everything, even ketchup. The commercial Hunt's ketchup will have 33% solids, but when we buy it at the grocery store, it's going to have 29% solids.
I did not know that.
So there's always going to be a better product. So, you start with that. And then the second part was we toast the buns. That bun is made specifically for food service, and seldom ever you're going to see it at a grocery store sliced on top. It's a roll. And then the chili. That's I tell people that was my diary. I got that chili recipe, which actually your neighbors across the street make it for us, and we finish, because the batch calls for 500 pounds of ground beef, and I can't cook. So Asheville Packing across the street have been making it for us all these years, and then they bring it to us 2 times a week, and then we finish it there. So the chili itself. And then making every hot dog one at a time. It doesn't sit and wait for you. I'm not going to mention the name, there's a huge place in Atlanta which uses exactly the same thing we do. But because they're so big, they have to pre-make it. And unfortunately, it loses its flavor profile. And they use the same hot dog that we do, the same bun, which is made out of Flowers Bakery out of Thomasville, Georgia. They're nationwide now, but they started with my father-in-law back in the 60s. The other part is, every hot dog we make, we genuinely care about making it right, making it fresh, and making it there. And in our chili is no additives, no. We can. That's why when you walked up the line, you saw the fact that it had 15% fat, and it was there, and we weren't going to try to hide it either. You knew what you were getting. We don't have any tomato product in the chili. And I think it's just like anything else. You do it long enough, you become good at it.
I imagine you wake up in the middle of the night putting hot dogs together. I bet you can do it in your sleep, right?
Well, if you ask some of my staff, they'll tell you that at times I was asleep.
Okay, for real.
But you do it long enough, you become good at it.
Yeah.
And especially if you care, you just practice makes perfect.
I love that.
And one of the things that I used to do, and we continue to do there with the folks there now, is, make sure you taste everything. And especially when you deal with a natural product.
Right.
You take a bite, make a hot dog, eat every day. When the batch of chili, soups, everything, you want to taste it to make sure that the flavor profile is the same.
Yeah. So you did this every day, pretty much 6 days a week, right?
6 days
you were
a week.
only closed on Sunday.
Well, may I share something?
You can, yes.
Actually, my relationship with the church goes back when you folks
Pastor
were-
Homer, yes.
Pastor
My
Homer.
predecessor here was the first customer.
He was the very first
He
customer.
was, yes.
And he, one of the things he shared with me is that he appreciated that we chose to honor the Lord's Day, and as long as you do that, He'll look after you. And I cherish that advice, which of course we always followed, even through the lean years. And it was the best advice I had gotten. I don't think he meant it, as a directive, if you will,
Sure.
just as a friendly reminder
Yeah.
to, and I've always cherished that.
We still joke. His wife, Donna, Homer passed away in 1997. His wife, Donna, and 2 sons are still here, and she always talks. In fact, last year, I texted you and told you this, but last year I passed him in terms of tenure at the church. I'm now the longest serving pastor here. He was for many years. The day we knew the day that I was going to pass him in that time period, and I spoke to Donna, his wife. I said, I'm taking you out to lunch that day, anywhere in town, anywhere you want to go, you name it. She said, let's go to Hot Dog World. She loves it. We have our picture out in front there and had a great day. In fact, Homer was sick one time. We joke about this. He was sick one time and had to be in the hospital. He was discharged from the hospital, and on the way home, they stopped and got hot dogs. That was the first thing he wanted when he got out of the hospital. I love it.
I remember what you're talking about, Mrs. Jenkins, because you, I wish I was there, but it was one of the days that I was out of
Right.
town,
Yeah.
and we were visiting our daughter in Florida, and you had shared those pictures,
Yeah.
and how much I wish I was there
We had
to give her a
fun.
hug
Oh.
and just, and it's. Like I said, I've cherished my relationship with your church.
Oh, and you've been so good. So many times, Steve won't tell this. He's such a humble man, but so many times I've been in places, in hospitals, in situations when family members had family passing away or something like that, and I've seen people come in with bags full of hot dogs from Steve to bless them in times of need. He's blessed our church so many times for events, and I'm just thankful you've been a part of this community for so long.
My response to that has always been that I was passing on his blessings.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, pure and simple is I don't know that I've done anything more than others. I really don't. I haven't kept score, and I don't care. But my attitude has always been that I was blessed, so therefore you pass on his blessings. And if
Yeah.
someone else, may wanted to do more than me, but if they were in a position to do so, I'm sure, the bottom line is this: we're blessed with a great community,
We
and
are.
everybody does their share.
Oh,
So,
we are.
and in my case, I just did my share. That's all.
Oh,
That's
you've done so much and done it so well.
Well, thank you.
I know you're a man of a very deep faith, Steve. I know your
I try.
relationship with God. You're a
I
man of
try.
deep faith. How does that enter into what you've done with Hot Dog World, your business, your life? How does that affect it?
My attitude was always that follow His commandments.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up Orthodox Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a Protestant church, a Catholic church, at the end of the day, we follow His commandments.
Mm-hmm.
And if we follow His commandments, it's really not that complicated. It really is not that complicated. The golden rule in itself.
Yeah.
Help a neighbor, honor God, help a neighbor. That's all He wants us to do.
That's right.
Do the right thing. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not rocket science,
Right.
which I would fail. But but as far as
Yeah.
the commandments, they're so simple and so easy for us to follow.
I love that. I believe
Yeah.
the Lord makes it simple for us to know how to do the right thing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is absolutely very simple.
Mm-hmm.
Just follow His commandments.
I'm a believer in this. I believe that communities have hubs where people come together and actually live in community. The church is one of those places. There are other places. The small town I grew up in, we were talking about it a few minutes ago, called Walberg, middle of North Carolina, wide place in the road. We used to have a little grocery store. Everybody called it Murphy's. Everybody went to Murphy's if you needed something quick. It was a convenience store before there were convenience stores.
Mm-hmm.
that was the place you saw everybody. That's the place you got together with neighbors. That's the place where the old men hung out, played cards over off to the side. I mean, it was a cool place. When Murphy's closed, something went out of that community that was never the same again. Hot Dog World is that kind of place to me. It's a place where I see people that I wouldn't see somewhere else. It's more than the hot dogs. There's something about the community there. There's an atmosphere in the place. How do you create that? Where does that come from?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. As you and I were talking earlier, before I came to Hendersonville, I worked for a food service company, and that job literally took me just about every town in North Carolina, upstate South Carolina, some parts of Virginia. And it's hard to put your finger in it. I usually call it the it factor. You don't know what that is. And it's, it's a combination of all of it. Maybe, obviously, if it was a convenience store or the gathering place that you're mentioning, it offered a service of some kind. Sure. But there was more to it. It was relationships. It's, the owner of that particular place was genuine in caring for his customers. It offered what his customers wanted. He didn't mind the fact that people gathered there. It wasn't, it was just, and like I said, in a lot of the small towns, there was a knit factor that made this place a gathering place, but you just can't put your finger. I just happen to believe it's a combination of all of it.
Yeah.
It was in our case, it was a combination of, somebody walking in through the door. I never cared about, this person is going to make me rich or make me profitable. My concern was always, is this person going to leave happy, whether he's buying one hot dog or a dozen hot dogs? It didn't matter to me. And I think people realize that, as you and I were talking earlier, that I went to UNC, and one of the greatest business lessons that I've learned from Dean Smith. Obviously, he wanted victories,
sure, and
I wanted profits, but he never focused on the wins, and I never focused on the bottom line. I focused, as he always stated, on doing the right thing. And if you do the right thing, the wins were byproduct in basketball, and profits are byproduct in business. Oh. And like I said, I didn't care if somebody walked to the door and he was just buying a Coke or buying a $100 order. My attitude was always the same towards everybody.
Well said. Well said. Important lesson.
Yeah, that's, like I said, I've learned that from him.
So you put together hundreds of hot dogs every day for over 30 years. How do you last? So, what do you do to last that long and not burn out, not quit? What's the secret of that? So few people do anything for 30 years now. But you did. You were there. That's the one thing about Hendo, where you were there.
Yeah.
All the time. How do you do that?
Well, I enjoyed what I was doing. I really did.
Yeah.
I enjoyed my customers. Made, hundreds of friends. Sad to say, I don't know a lot of their names. But reality is, they were my friends.
Yes.
My attitude was, any time in Henderson County, there's 165 places you can go eat. But you came to mine. So not only do I need to take care of you, I also need to express my gratitude. And that was always the case. There was always an exception to some people you just could never please. And, that's life.
Yeah.
And then the part was, our staff was great. My attitude about, staff was find good people and train them to be good workers. The other way just doesn't work. great workers who aren't good people, it's just a matter of time. They just mess up your environment, mess up that family thing that you want to create. And that was the biggest blessing. These people were not my workers. They were my co-workers, and I always told them that. I just had a different responsibility than they did. And treated them with respect, and realizing that, I use this example all the time. If you're in high school, there's, your school activities are important. It may not be important to me, but they are to you. So I need to make sure to accommodate you, make sure that, you become involved. And then, work is important, but family was more important.
Sure.
So, and like I said, these folks that I had the privilege to work with all these years were not my workers, they were my family. So but let me just share with you, that was the hardest part, is telling them that I was leaving. It was really difficult for me, and it was difficult for them as well, the separation, but they're in good hands, so.
Absolutely. I've been since you left and enjoyed it thoroughly.
Thank you.
Hot Dog World will go on for a long time.
Yeah, Sanasi does a good job, and his family, he wants to do the right thing to continue that.
And he's been right there for a long time as well. How long has he been there?
He came in 1995. We had our third child, and Dora was working a lot, and we were blessed with our in-laws helping us take care of our children so Dora could work. But now they had needs and school activities. Dora had to run them around, so made the decision that for Dora to step away from the business, to concentrate on her children, and then I needed time off to be. Even though reality is I missed out a lot of quality time with them, evening meals and tucked in bed, and some of the things that obviously I wish I could have back, but I know that I won't. But Dora, at least they had, and she was very strong with taking care of the kids. And so in order for us to do that, to concentrate on the kids, someone else needed to step in. So Dora sold her share to the business over 12 years to Thanasi, and then he became a full partner 10, 12 years later in the business. So he works as hard as I ever did as well.
Fantastic. I look forward to continuing to go there. It's what a place.
Thank you.
What tell us about the decision-making process to retire. What did that look like for you? What led to your retirement? You just retired. What?
December 31st.
December 31st.
That was my last official day.
Like not quite 2 months into.
Yeah, I still go back. I think I had made the decision the week after not to go, so that people would just adjust to going to Thanasi, and Yeah. And then I started going 2 or 3 times a week. I go by and make sure they don't need anything, make sure the paperwork, and I still do. To answer your question rather, about 5 years ago, in mid-50s, I just thought that I just needed to rest my body and soul, and I approached Thanasi to see what does he want to do, and he said that he wanted to continue running the business with his family, his sons, his wife helps. So we had made the decision that when that time came, I would step away, and at the beginning of last year, I started talking about it and thinking about it more and more. And I thought it was going to happen, but didn't really believe it was going to happen. And of course, my wife and kids were all aboard with that decision. Fortunately, they're able to stand on their own 2 feet. Over Thanksgiving, the kids were home with their spouses and dogs. And we talked about it and really said that, don't go back. Just go, make sure you take some time off. Make sure you make the decision. And like I said, I really didn't think it was going to happen. And then we just decided as a family, and of course with Thanasi in agreement that it was time. And that's I still didn't believe it until it actually happened.
Now, what's it like now? You're 2 months into retirement. What's it like to go from all that to, I'm not sure what all you're doing now, but what's it like?
Well, initially, I think the biggest joy of the whole thing is Dora and I can actually spend time together.
Oh, yeah.
Without talking about the kids, without talking about the business, without talking. And, we never had that. So, I'm not sure she's going to kill me or anything, but honestly, it's a joy for the both of us. She actually says that she has a husband for the first time in 35 years, because we've been married 35 years as well.
You essentially got married and started
the
business.
Yeah. And at that time, the both of us would work 70, 80-hour weeks.
Right.
We couldn't afford to have employees. It was a really difficult time financially for us. But, there were some movies that I wanted to watch. We did some yard work, visited our daughter in Florida, stayed there for about a week, and she's actually expecting, so that's exciting.
Congratulations. Would that be your first grandchild?
That'll be our first grandchild in July. And doing chores around the house. And I think I'm ready to go ahead and start volunteering. I'm meeting with an organization next week to serve in their board of directors as a charitable organization.
Fantastic.
And just to find things to do. And that's the plan, is to there's so many great organizations in our community that do great work that I want to be part of that. So that's the next phase.
I have no doubt you'll be serving somewhere.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that.
Okay. A couple of fun questions
Sure,
quick about
sure.
Hot Dog World. If you can have anything on the menu at Hot Dog World, what would you pick?
It's something that when I go, and probably the house special hot dog, mustard, chili, and onions. Yeah.
My mind is blown.
Yeah.
The house special
The
is
house
what you would
special,
pick.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
great. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about it.
I like our coleslaw, and I like a slaw dog.
Yes.
But I'd rather just have the hot dog and the slaw if I'm going to eat that. But if I'm going to get chili on it, I'm just going to get the traditional hot dog, mustard, chili, and onions.
You still like hot dogs.
I love
After
hot dogs.
all this year. You hear people say, I make this all day long. I don't want to see another hot dog, but you still like them.
This sounds, I'd rather have a good hot dog than a steak.
There you go.
And when we would visit places and someone would tell us that, this people serve a great hot dog, Dora and I would go and, get it, making comparisons. And then, and sometimes you had a eureka moment and you said, God, why didn't I think of that?
Really?
Yeah.
And
you
so
learn.
interesting.
You learn every day because, there's somebody out there that does it better than you. And it's always great to open up your eyes. Not only the positive, you also see the negative. And I would go back, to the store and say, we were there and these people are doing this. Let's not do that. And I would also encourage my staff, if you go in a restaurant and you see a habit, something that you don't like, you just come back and share with us, so make sure we don't do it.
I do that with churches. If I'm in another town, I'm going to go to church somewhere most of the time, and I'm looking for ideas, what to do and what not to do. So you're on vacation. You're going to a hot dog place.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Incredible. Always learning.
Well, may I share something that
Please
I've
do.
learned from you?
Sure.
I was listening to you on the radio. You might have been 10, 12 years. I lose track of time.
Yeah.
And you said that you were one of the restaurants, and it was after church, and someone had a waitress bumped into someone that looked like it came from the church, and his response was nowhere close to a Christian attitude. I don't know if you remember saying that.
I've said that. I remember saying several things.
And that to me, that I kept that thought, when someone, cuts us off on the road or does something, don't make his day worse by, by exhibiting a anger or bad words or something like that. We just need to be Christians all the time. And I remember, so I appreciate you. Like I said, I've listened to that sermon on the radio, and it really affected me, my attitude towards other people. So
glad.
So I'm sorry, what did you ask me? I know.
What was my original question? I think he answered my original question, didn't he?
But you don't know how that affected me.
Yeah.
And I share that. Actually, at that particular time, I was teaching Sunday school.
Yeah.
And I went back and just said, our attitude, if we call ourselves Christians, we need to act like it. Yeah.
I have a friend who he's part of the church here, and he works with businesses broadly, with businesses all over North Carolina and Western North Carolina. And I remember when I met him, I asked him, "What do you do?" And he said, "I teach people how to treat people right." And that stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
A very successful man who works with some very successful businesses. He could sum it up like that.
Yeah.
Treat people right.
Treat people right.
Treat people right.
Awesome. And again, go back to what we said earlier. His commandments, the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
If we honor those, this would be a better world for all of us.
Most frequent customer you have, I'm not looking for names. The most frequent customer, how often do they come to Hot Dog World?
We had a group of siblings that would come just about every day except Friday. And it was so nice because it wasn't about the food. Obviously, they each would get a snack, but it was coming there just to visit and catch up with their brothers. It's beautiful.
Awesome. That's where it becomes more than the hot dogs.
Yes.
It's a community
Mm-hmm.
place. Steve, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
It's always a joy to spend time just to hang out with you. I saw you walk in today, and I want a hot dog. Is that kind of like Pavlov's dog's reaction when they hear the bell? They start to salivate when I see Steve.
Yeah.
I need to go to Hot Dog World and get a hot dog now.
For 35 years, when I would walk into the grocery store, one of the box stores or anywhere else, people would ask me, "Did you bring me a hot dog?" Or even when first thing in the morning when I ran a chore or something, "Did you bring me a hot dog?" And I said, it was 35 great years and 35 years meeting wonderful people, and absolutely no regrets.
I think I can speak for our community to say that our hats are off to you, sir.
You're kind.
People watching this are saying amen or attaboy or whatever to what I'm saying right now. Our hats are off to you, sir.
Thank you.
You have been faithful. You've been a fixture in this community for so long, and you've just provided us a place to have some good food, but just have a good feeling and know that somebody cares. You always put that that came across the counter when you're there buying a hot dog, and you would speak and you would interact. You know that guy cares.
Well,
thank you.
From my perspective, it's what made me get up in the morning and go to work every morning.
Yeah.
So.
Well done, sir.
Thank
Congratulations
you.
to
Thank you very much.
Your precious wife, Dora. I met her several times. She's a hero as well.
Thank you.
And your family. Thank you for all that you've done and will do for this community.
Thank you. And I'm very honored to be here with you today and having this conversation.
Thank you
very
so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.